Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's AMSSM MSIG webinar, Agostini Medical Student Community Outreach Grant, and presentations by our 2025 grant recipients. We're glad you have joined us tonight as we honor our 2025 grant recipients to learn about the programs and events that they developed and coordinated in their communities and hear about the impact these programs made with the youth participants. We'd also like to thank the grant recipients, faculty supporters who are AMSSM members, Dr. Oladani Falani, Dr. Justin Conway, Dr. Rio Bojani, Dr. Lauren Radoff, and Dr. Catherine Vidla. We are also honored to have Dr. Rosemary Agostini, past president Dr. Amy Powell, and Agostini grant leader Dr. Melissa Nyack, who will also share important information about the discussion. I'd also like to thank those attending tonight's webinar, and we hope this session inspires medical students to apply for this grant opportunity and for AMSSM members and faculty in attendance to encourage medical students you know to apply for this grant. My name is student Dr. Zhané Washington, an M3 at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and a physiatry interest with a potential focus in sports medicine. I was also a prior recipient of this grant last year, and I served as one of the 2025 AMSSM MSIG officers. Tonight, I will be serving as the moderator for this MSIG webinar. Now it's my pleasure to introduce past AMSSM president, Dr. Amy Powell, who will share her vision on creating this grant during her AMSSM presidency from 2021 to 2022, and its impact this grant has had and will continue to have in communities across the USA. Dr. Powell, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I don't want to take too much time. Thanks for joining us tonight, and thanks for those who are listening on recording. I had a vision for this grant mostly because I wanted to honor my mentor, Dr. Agostini, who has spent her life lifting up other people, and we all need a leg up. So she has lifted up other people, including me, but most importantly, underrepresented and underserved communities well before that was an important thing in our world. And just the legacy of her giving and the legacy of her service and mentorship was really what brought this to fruition. And I'm so honored and so proud to see what all of you have done with this. A little bit goes a long way. So there's a lot of service, a lot of mentorship, a lot of future service and mentorship. I heard you say that you have had 2 mentees now, and that's wonderful. That's the whole purpose of this. So I think if we can raise a chain of people who may not have been exposed to sports medicine, including myself, through something small like this, it will go a long way to bringing in a group of people that more closely represent the athletes that we care for. So that's the purpose, and thank you very much for letting me express that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now that Dr. Powell has shared her vision about the grant, we'll now hear presentations from the 2025 grant recipients. It's my pleasure to introduce Kyla Baron. She is a third-year medical student at Howard University College of Medicine in Washington, D.C. Her faculty supporter is Dr. Oladani Falani. Kyla, please begin your presentation.
As previously mentioned, my name is Kyla Baron. I am a current third-year medical student at Howard University College of Medicine, and my project was called the Movement Lab, and it was a dance and sports medicine clinic. I don't have any financial conflicts of interest, but the program was supported with AMSSM grant funding, so I'm very grateful for them and their support. And then I'll try to keep it fairly informal, but I just want to talk about what the background and rationale for my project is, how I developed the project, what the implementation looks like, and then what the impact and future directions are. So to begin with, like I said, I attend medical school at Howard University College of Medicine, which sits right in the center of Washington, D.C. And I'm not for sure how many people are familiar with Washington, D.C., but it is a 10-mile by 10-mile 61 square foot total city that houses over 700,000 people, is our nation's capital. And this city has so much culture and so much just tradition that runs through it. So I tried to keep a lot of that in mind when I created my project. As mentioned, we have 702,000 people in our little 61 square mile city, but over 28% of our youth in the city are currently living below the poverty line. And there's some maps at the bottom that talk about the median household income in DC in comparison to where our Black populations are in DC in comparison to where our individuals and students are living below the poverty line. And if you can see the differences, we see that a lot of Northwest DC has a lot of our higher income, when a lot of our Southeast DC, we're separated into quadrants, has not only our most heavily populated areas of Black individuals, but also other minorities and people living below the poverty line. And right in the center, I'm not sure if you guys can see the cursor, is where Howard sits. And a lot of the work we do with our students is in the Southeast region. So I wanted to keep that in mind. And that's why I think the city was such a good place for a project like this to take place, to really start increasing exposure into healthcare. And then secondly, I have to mention why I chose to do a dance project. I have been in love with sports medicine since I was younger, but dance is my first language and my first love. And I listened to the Agostini grant presentations last year and the year before, and I was just so inspired by what medical students' minds can do when we take time to think about how we're exposing students into this field that we all love. And one thing I always thought about was that when I was younger, I was surrounded by a group of individuals, mainly young women, who put so much pressure on our body and so much training on our body. And we have so many injuries, but we're often not recognized in the sports medicine space. So as I fell in love with science and with the field of STEM, I began to look at the anatomy of a dancer and how our bodies move and how we're comparable to cheerleaders or rhythmic gymnasts and all these other mainly female predominated fields that don't often get looked at in sports. And I decided that when I became a physician, I did not want to lose sight of what brought me into this field. So it was very important to me to try and combine dance and sports medicine. So because of that, I started the Movement Lab, which is a youth and dance sports medicine clinic for middle school and high school girls and boys within the city of DC. It is community centered, it is mentorship driven, and the main point was to integrate movement, medicine, and education. I wanted to provide hands-on exposure for MSK health and teach these students how to prevent injuries for their bodies, how to be aware of their bodies, and healthy habits for eating. The goals of my program were separated between short, intermediate, and long term, mainly with short term, making sure that we're increasing knowledge of how to prevent injuries, increasing the basics of MSK concepts, and then also just providing an initial exposure to medicine and sports medicine. Intermediate goals were more along having sustained mentorship, and the most important one to me was actually encouraging safer spaces for DC youth outside of school, because we often have conversations of where do the kids go when they're not in school, and there's not a lot of programming in DC. So making sure I could contribute to that. And then also just the long-term goal of increasing diversity in sports medicine, reducing the injury burden through early education, and then hopefully preparing a project that was scalable and could be replicable in the future. So for my event, this is the flyer I used for my recruitment. If you see the date is April 18th, which means it has not happened yet. It was scheduled to happen about a month ago, but the nature of working with a big school and a big sports program, and Howard is actually playing in March Madness right now, which is major for us. The event did get canceled, so I was able to reschedule it and find a new venue to hold it. So I will be hosting this dance clinic on April 18th at the Dance Institute of Washington, which is about 5 minutes up the street from Howard University in Northwest Washington, DC. And the project is broken down into 3 different parts. So I'll talk about the recruitment and then the parts of the program. For recruitment, like I said, I really wanted to make sure that we were recruiting in those areas that I showed on that map. So we went to local middle and high schools. There's a STEM careers program that takes place in Anacostia, DC, which is the heart of DC, as what it's called if you see it on the signs. We went to churches, community centers, pediatrics offices, dance studios, and then just networking to try and get hands on as many young girls and boys as we could in the city who have a love for sports medicine and have a love for dance. Next, the first part of the program is a dance clinic. So we're going to do warm-ups that are emphasized with certain muscle groups. So making sure that the girls are knowing, if I'm stretching my ankles, what am I preventing? If I'm stretching my knees, why do we stretch our backs so thoroughly? What are the most common injuries that happen in dance? And how do we warm them up properly? Next, if you see the clips on the top, Howard is blessed to have 2 very unique dance teams that are very well known within the city, and a lot of the girls train and aspire to join these teams. So I have partnered with the girls from these dance teams, as well as other current and previous HBCU dancers, to come together and put together a routine for the workshop that will be taught to our students, and then they'll be able to perform it and film it for their family and friends at the end, because I want them to have something tangible to show at the end of the day. The second part is an injury prevention education workshop where we have anatomy models, which we were able to purchase through the help of AMSSM, where we can show them the joints and the most common injuries more anatomically. So show them this is where these ligaments are. The most common injuries in dance are ankle sprains, tendinopathies, ACL and MCL tears. So show them where these joints are. How do we take muscle and strengthen the muscles around them to reduce the injuries on these regions, and they can actually see what their bodies look like on the inside. Next, we have ace bandages and tape. I don't have my wonderful medical students showing them how to ace bandage and tape ankle sprains and wraps, because that is the most common injury we see in studios. And then lastly, and most importantly, is a healthy eating and healthy lifestyle workshop. We will have a bunch of healthy foods and snacks there, which we also were able to purchase for the girls and the boys. But also we'll have a pediatrician that comes and talks to them about what does it mean to eat healthily. And this is important to me, not only because they're young athletes, but also because the nature of dance is that there is a very bad precedent on what bodies should look like. And there's a lot of eating disorders that run in this field of athletics as well. And we want to make sure that the kids are not only staying healthy so they can continue to grow, but also there's a lot of injuries that you predispose yourself to when you're not feeding yourself the proper nutrients. And then the last one is just continued mentorship. So we have medical students, undergraduate volunteers, emergency medicine doctors, family medicine doctors, and pediatricians who are all coming together to make this event possible. And I had to shout out my sports medicine interest group on the left. I serve as the president at Howard, and this is just such an amazing group of students who love sports medicine and love events like this. So a lot of them are here to support me as well. And then for the impact, there's an article I came across when I was planning this called Why Diversity in Sports Medicine is Key to Better Patient Care. And it basically just says, despite the clear rise in competitive women's sports, we still don't have a lot of women physicians in the fields. We have 2.8% of Black women in the field and 2% of Latina women in the field, and even less in the sports medicine space. So I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can for this early exposure to continue to open up this population and let little girls and little boys who are Black or Latina or Native American or just not of a population they most commonly see in medicine know that this is a field that is open and welcoming to them. So for my next steps, I don't want this to be a one-day event. I want it to be longitudinal. Once the season is done, I'm looking forward to bringing the kids to the school and letting them see the facility. We have a pool, a football field, training gyms, training centers, courts, and everything. And I want them to see what a collegiate facility can look like. We also have a very unique experience at the medical school where we bring middle and high schoolers into our anatomy labs and we show them cadavers at a very young age. We want them to be exposed to medicine, to know what they're getting themselves into, and to know what the muscles and bones look like on a real body. So we'll bring them into the medical school for a tour. And then also I have medical school students who have been willing to continue the mentorship past the day, which is very hard because we're so busy. So they'll be able to do quarterly check-ins with their students to make sure that they're okay and they're still training properly. And then I also would like the dance clinic to happen annually. And then just for my last slide for future aspirations, I want to expand our outreach of how many students we can have. The goal right now is about 30 to 35 because that's the studio space, but I'd like to increase it to larger spaces after that. I also want to increase the range of skills and clinical concepts the students have. So bring in ultrasound guided techniques with the models, or maybe teach them CPR, have them suture, just some hands-on things to really show them what the field could bring. I want to strengthen the partnerships with the medical schools and the healthcare trainees to continue to increase this mentorship that we have. And then lastly, just create a sustainable model so that I can transition this project to future students, because I don't want to see it stop with just me. And then lastly, I must acknowledge my team. So Dr. Fulani, who has been an incredible mentor to me since my first year at Howard, and one of the only people that I feel like understands my passion for sports and has always just encouraged me. I believe he's on this call. So Dr. Fulani, thank you so much for everything again and again. And then my classmate, Ronnie Lindsay, who also has a love for PM&R, a love for dance, a love for sports, who was my sounding board for this whole process. And then Jasmine Merlette, who was a PsyD candidate who helped me network with the schools and get in touch with the students to start recruitment. And then a huge thank you to Dr. Agostini, to Dr. Powell, Dr. Nyack, and to Joan Brown for creating this opportunity and for continuously supporting medical students, and just for your dedication to the field and increasing exposure to sports medicine. I believe we're holding all questions for the end. So thank you guys so much for listening. And that was my project.
Okay, thank you, Kyla, for your presentation. I'm actually from Baltimore and quite familiar with the DMV area as a whole, so I'm sure your program will be quite impactful and insightful once you are able to put it on in the next month. So that's exciting. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Milan Patel. He is a third-year medical student at the Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine in Middletown, New York. His faculty supporter is Dr. Justin Conway. Milan also serves as the 2026 AMSSM MSIG president and also served as a 2025 MSIG officer. He's also my secretary over at the PM&R interest group at SMA.
All right. Are you guys able to see this? Great. All right. Thank you so much for the introduction. So our event was titled Sports Medicine Immersion Day, and we held it in late October of last year at the Hudson Valley Renegade Stadium. So this is just a quick picture of the stadium. And if you could see here in the background, in the back left, there's a lounge there. And the lounge is where we held the event. So the event, we had about 40 students attend. Oops, sorry, my slides aren't going. There we go. Okay. Before I get into the students, sorry, just a quick background and objectives. So for the background, like why we did this event, the main reason was because the Hudson Valley area where we all reside in, there's many areas, towns that are federally designated as medically underserved, and there's a need for increased opportunities for students to gain early exposure, resources, and mentorship to achieving a career in healthcare. And currently we lack that. Our school is one of the only medical schools in the area. The closest other schools are down near Westchester and in the city and Albany. So we really, there really is a need for more opportunity for increasing mentorship in our area for the high school students. So by creating an event like this, the goal was to bridge the educational gaps that exist by giving students from these underrepresented backgrounds hands-on clinical exposure early on in their educational journeys, with also an emphasis on sports medicine so that they're able to know, these kind of opportunities exist. Because, when I was there in their shoes, their age, I never knew that something like this existed. So the goal is to make sure that students are aware of the opportunities that are available for them when they're going into college, choosing what they want to do after college. All right. So just to kind of go into the recruitment stages of things. So this was the flyer we created, and we distributed it to a wealth of different people. So we contacted guidance counselors, we contacted coaches, athletic trainers, teachers, after-school programs, libraries, local community foundations, hospital volunteer coordinators, you name it. We reached out to as many people as we could because we wanted to make sure that we spread the word and got the word out to everyone that could be possibly interested. And we also did like a pre-event survey kind of just to see what students' baseline knowledge was before they came to our event. And then we also did a post-event survey after the event to kind of see how our event helped them increase their knowledge in the different stations we did. So as you can see here on the flyer, we started out with the CPR station, we had a gait analysis station, and we had an MSK ultrasound station. We did the knee, and then we also did the wrist. We did some ankle taping. We did a knee physical exam maneuvers. We did concussion assessment and evaluation. We also did a Narcan demonstration. We had representatives from the Council on Addiction Prevention Education come and help out with our event. So they were able to educate students on that, and also the overdose rates that occur in our communities at alarming rates. They were able to educate students on that, how to recognize an overdose and how to prevent it as well. And then we also had Beautiful People Adaptive Sports, which is a local adaptive sports organization, join us. And they were able to talk to students about volunteer opportunities and how to get involved in adaptive sports while they're in high school and help out with the adaptive athletes. So kind of just to get more into the student demographics. So the goal was to have 40 students attend our event, and we had 41 students register. And as you can see here, we had a good mix from 9th all the way to 12th graders. And overall, we had 35 students present. We had some students that came early, had to leave early for practice. We also had some students that had to come later, but they were all able to get in on the event and enjoy it as well. So as you can see here on the map on the right, I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but we have these three different circles. So on the bottom left, we have Port Jervis. We have a high school that we have students that came from a high school near Port Jervis, which is about almost like 40 to 50 miles away from where the stadium is. The stadium is represented by the red star here, and that's in Wappinger Falls, New York. It's about 60 miles upstate from the city. And we had students also coming all the way from Kingston, which is at the top of the map. And then we had students coming even from the south here by Mahopac. So all these circles are about 50 to 60 miles away from where the stadium is located. So you can see that the word of the event got out pretty far and students traveled pretty far to get to the event. So overall, we had 35 students, and then these students were spread out from 17 different high schools. And so 63% of the students came from schools with over 40% of them designated as economically disadvantaged. So kind of just to start off the day, we had students come in, we had them register, and then to kind of kick off the day at around 9 a.m., we started off with presentations from our sports medicine physicians. We had Dr. Cavanna presenting on her journey to sports medicine as a doctor of osteopathic medicine. We had Dr. Justin Conway, who was also my faculty sponsor. Couldn't have done this event without him, who talked about his journey to sports medicine, what it's like to practice a career in sports medicine, how to get into sports medicine, also sports medicine research. And he also talked about his own journey with his injuries in sports medicine as well. And then we had Anna, who's from the Catskill-Hudson Area Health Education Center on the right here. She talked about how Catskill-Hudson Area Health Education Center has opportunities for students, like pipeline programs, for students to get exposure to healthcare early on in their high school journeys. So to kick off the first station, and just to give a quick background, we divided the students up into mini groups. So all the stations were going on simultaneously, and then every 15 to 20 minutes we had students rotating. So just to kind of start out in the corner, we started with the CPR station. We had Tyler, who is the volunteer. He's a second-year medical student, demonstrating to students, what is CPR, when to use it, how to perform proper technique. And as you can see by the pictures here, students were really getting into it, and we were using mannequins provided by our school, and they really were able to perfect the technique and had a great time. This was one of the favorite stations that they chose at the end when they filled out the post-event survey. So for our second station, we did the knee physical exam maneuvers. We have Dr. Sharma here, who's a Vassar Sports Medicine Fellow. And we have Zane, who's a second-year medical student. And they were helping out by showing students how to go through a full knee physical exam with the inspection, palpation, range of motion testing, special exam maneuvers. And then we had students practice it on each other, on the models. And they also really enjoyed that hands-on aspect of it. And this is also a great station that we added in, the gait analysis station. We had Dr. DeRusso. So gait analysis, again, the students really enjoyed this because it's something that you don't learn about, even as me as a medical student, we didn't learn much about it until we got to medical school. So this is something that you don't even know exists. So it was really cool to see the students just really appreciate what gait analysis is. And Dr. DeRusso is an amazing mentor, and he was able to take the students through the different phases of gait, how to analyze someone's gait, and they had the students practice it on each other. And this was by far the fan favorite station, the MSK ultrasound. As you can see here with the photo in the bottom left, we had Dr. Roy Chen and Dr. Tracy Dang. Both are physicians. Dr. Chen is a PM&R resident. Dr. Dang is a Vassar Sports Medicine Fellow as well. So we had them both bring in their butterflies that they use for their training, and they were able to hook it up to the tablets and their iPhones and let students practice with each other. And they also were able to go through how to scan the knee as well as how to scan the wrist. And again, students really, really enjoyed this station. They kept talking about it even at the end of the event. And this was something that we're keeping in mind when we plan for our event next year as well. All right. And to go on to our fifth station, we had the Catskill Area Health Education Center, as well as the Center Council for Addiction Prevention Education. So the Catskill Area Health Education Center, we had Anna, kind of like what I talked about before in the beginning. She was talking to students about the different pathways to a career in healthcare, as well as what AHEC offers for students, whether when they get to college or right now when they're in high school. And then we had Kate talk about, again, Narcan training, when to recognize an overdose, how to use Narcan, and they were able to give educational resources and pamphlets out to the students as well. And then we had our concussion assessment station with Dr. Conway and Katrina. So here students were, for each of these stations, students had handouts. So students were following along with a handout on how to assess a concussion, as well as how to evaluate it. And then they went through different exam maneuvers that a physician would perform on either the sideline or in the clinic to continue assessing, to assess a concussion and how to evaluate it further, and then also return to play criteria for that. And then our seventh station, we had ankle taping. So for the ankle taping station, we had Dr. Cavanna and Jackson, and we had the students basically, they quickly demoed how to tape an ankle. As was mentioned earlier, ankle injuries are very common, so it's a very important skill to have. So they quickly demoed how to do an ankle tape, and then students went ahead and just continued practicing on each other. And again, they really enjoyed this station as well. It was very hands-on. And then lastly, we had the adaptive sports education table. We had Stephanie, who is the director for Beautiful People Adaptive Sports, talk to students about what adaptive sports is and how to get involved as a high school student in volunteering in adaptive sports. This program is very widespread throughout the Orange County, which is, again, where the students came from. And they host events throughout the whole entire year for various sports such as basketball, field hockey, baseball, you name it. There's always some sporting event going on. There's always a need for volunteers to buddy up with the different adaptive sports athletes. And it's a great opportunity for students to get involved. All right. So after we wrapped up the stations, we had lunch for about an hour. We did a lunch and learn, and we also did some mentorship where we had the volunteers kind of just sit down with the students and talk with them, kind of get to know what their future goals are, and how we as the volunteers can help them out in getting their goals. And then after that, we embarked on our facilities tour, which the students also really seem to enjoy, to get the behind the scenes action of what it really looks like to be a sports medicine physician working for a professional team. So Dr. Conway is the team physician for the Hudson Valley Renegades. So we first started off in the training room, as you can see here on the left. So we just went through, talked about kind of the regimen and the training program that athletes have to go through, how rigorous it can be, and then also the different equipment that they have to use. And then here in the middle, you can see where the athletes store all the equipment. We took a pit stop here, talked again about what the day-to-day life looks like of being an athlete, and also what it looks like to be a team physician and an athletic trainer in this kind of setting. And on the right here is just a picture of the batting cages. This is also really like a fun time. Students were able to just kind of take pictures with the bats, get inside the batting cages, and get, a behind the scenes look at what the facilities look like. All right. And to end off the day, we gave students certificates for completion. And in this box here, right now it's blank, but each student got their own name put into the box, and we printed everyone's certificates out and we handed them out at the end. We also gave Catskill Hudson Area Health Education Center also created these goodie bags here on the right. Inside they had pens, water bottles, and other resources that we were able to give out to the students as well. And the Renegades were very generous and will be giving each of the participants as well 4 tickets each to the 2026 game. So we will be getting the tickets soon because they just went on sale for the 2026 season, and we'll be distributing that out to each of the participants as well. And I kind of just wanted to go through, again, the planning process, because I know there are students on here who are interested in applying. I know I definitely was interested and I came to this webinar last year. So my goal again is just to quickly walk through, like it's really important to start early. There's different resources on the AMSSM website, like the AMSSM Find a Doc tool. Look at previous grant webinars, draft proposals, reach out to family, colleagues, faculty for ideas. It really does take a whole village to kind of create an event like this. So it's important to start early and reach out to different people. And, consistent communication is key to any successful event. So I encourage you to just stay on top of your communication when you're hosting an event like this and have fun doing it. There was really a lot of fun doing an event like this. And I really want to do it again next year. So. And again, just a shout out for Dr. Conway. He was my faculty sponsor for the event. He is also a part of the AMSSM Collaborative Research Network, as well as the research summit that's happening at the upcoming meeting this year. So be sure to check out all the programming for that. And he is the team physician for the Renegades, as well as the Mount St. Mary College Knights and the Kingston Stockade. So again, a huge shout out to Dr. Conway. Wouldn't have been able to do this without his help. And again, just some more acknowledgments. These were all the volunteers that took the time out of their day to help with not only planning, but also attending and hosting the event. So we had a lot of hands on deck. And again, this could not have been done without them. So I really, really appreciate all of their help. And then just a special thank you to Anish, Rana, and Dr. Nowak, and family and friends again for their guidance. I've been reaching out to them ever since I started planning for this event, and without them, it wouldn't have been possible. And thank you again to Dr. Agostini, Joan Brown, Dr. Powell, and Dr. Nyack, and AMSSM for making ideas become a reality. Thank you. And any questions, we'll save them for the end.
Thank you so much for that presentation. That's awesome that the students will be getting tickets. But I will go ahead and introduce Julie Park and Sam Venker, who are our third recipients of the grant in 2025. Julie is a third-year medical student at McGovern Medical School at UT Health in Houston, Texas. Sam is a third-year medical student at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, Texas. Their faculty supporter is Dr. Rayal Bujani.
Hello, we are Julie and Sam, and we'll be presenting on our project STARS, Student Athletes Taking Active Roles in Sports Health and Wellness program. First, we wanted to thank our faculty sponsor, Dr. Bojani, and the AMSSM for supporting our project.
Yes, thank you to everyone who helped us out. Before we get into the details, we just want to share a little about ourselves. Like Zhané mentioned, my name is Sam. I'm a third-year medical student at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston.
And I'm Julie, a third-year medical student at UT Health Houston. We both come from a background of sports and athletics throughout our high school and college careers.
Oh yes, I did water polo and swimming, as you can see on the left.
And I participated in gymnastics and track and field.
So we both had really great experiences participating in sports throughout high school and into college. Some of the benefits of participating in youth sports that we personally felt, just to name a few, were learning to get along with teammates, working as a team, learning self-improvement and discipline, leadership, just to name a few.
But in addition to those benefits that we all intuitively understand, there's also profound, lasting health benefits deriving from youth sports participation. In our preparation for this project, we found research supporting benefits in mental health, cardiovascular health, and obesity among people participating in youth sports. And most importantly, these benefits were especially seen in the long term in those who continued to participate in sports and physical activity into adulthood.
Of course, there are also risks to participation in sports as well. Sports-related injuries are the top cause of injury-related ER visits in children. Sometimes these complications are just an unavoidable consequence of sports, but oftentimes injuries, as well as other acute conditions like heat stroke or rhabdo, can result from a lack of preparation or knowledge.
Some schools and athletic programs have the funding to support a robust athletic support staff, which can help students prevent and recover from injuries. However, not all schools are able to provide these services, leading to significant disparities in access to sports health professionals for some student athletes.
So, sports health professionals such as athletic trainers and sports physicians not only provide a crucial first line of defense against injuries and health complications, they're also often the ones who curious students are going to ask about diet, nutrition, proper exercising form, mental health, even big life decisions like college and career planning. And so, when students lack this resource, they may lack the building blocks for a healthy, active lifestyle going into adulthood.
For our project, we've been working for 2 years with the student athletes at Yes Prep East End High School. Yes Prep is a network of public open enrollment K through 12 charter schools in the Houston area. They're designed as a university preparatory program, meaning they're primarily meant to prepare students for higher education. But by virtue of their location within Houston, they tend to serve students of lower economic status and a higher proportion of ethnic and racial minorities.
So, Yes Prep East End, you can see it on the map there. In particular, it's a small school serving grades 6 through 12 in the second ward of Houston. It reports that 88% of its students are on free and reduced lunch programs. 99% of its students are Hispanic and a majority are bilingual. So they have a growing athletics department with sports like volleyball, cross country, basketball, soccer, track and field, and recently cheerleading. Many of the student athletes participate in 2 or 3 sports throughout the year. Despite all these sports and all these athletes, they have a total annual budget of only about $1,000 for the entire department, which is obviously not enough to have an athletic trainer or a partnered health professional on staff.
So, considering the population at East End and what we discovered about disparities in health literacy and access to athletic support, we designed the program around 3 core goals. The first was reducing preventable sports-related injuries. The second is promoting lifelong healthy habits through proper nutrition, hydration, and recovery. And third, supporting student-athlete mental health and well-being.
So, with these goals in mind, we designed a series of 8 lectures and workshops after school, held approximately every other week to address the educational needs of the student athletes at East End. And underlying these 3 goals is our desire that students not only get sort of a baseline level of knowledge, but that they also have the tools to teach one another and be self-sufficient. This is really our main purpose of the workshops and the educational sessions. We want students to become leaders on their teams, and we want them better able to support each other in the absence of any official athletic support staff.
So here's our schedule that we created and the titles of our lectures. You'll notice that most of our lectures have an associated activity or workshop as well as a snack. For the activity, we wanted to be fun and interactive. That way students could latch on to remember the core takeaways of the lecture. And as often as we could, we tried to tie in the themes of nutrition and healthy eating by bringing a homemade snack for the students after school, emphasizing using low-cost ingredients and substituting with healthy ingredients whenever it was possible.
So our first session was just the intro and was also an overview of careers in sports medicine. For this session, we discussed the goals of the project and sort of explained who we are. We also explained the different types of medical professionals and the career paths available in medicine and sports medicine more specifically. And for our snack, we did air fried sweet potato fries. Next, we did common injuries, and this was sort of an introduction to basic musculoskeletal physiology, as well as the mechanisms behind common injuries and how to prevent them. For the activity in this session, we also did ankle and wrist taping. We brought some athletic tape and pre-wrap, which was generously donated by our sponsor, Dr. Bajani. We took about 10 minutes to demonstrate proper technique and common mistakes to avoid, such as having your wrap be too tight, too loose, improper support. And for the remainder of the session, we just let the students practice on themselves with our guidance, and they had a lot of fun doing it.
Next was macronutrients. This was our first big nutrition lecture in which we talked about the main food groups and the principles of nutrition with special considerations for sports participation and fueling. The activity and the snack involved was smoothie making. We got creative with ingredients, including things like tofu to ensure high protein, as well as berries and Greek yogurt to ensure a balance of carbs, fat, and fiber.
Next was time management goal setting. So this was a session where we went over some common stressors for student athletes off the field. And we included things like time management, preparing for college, and just general goal setting. Our activity was making SMART goals. For those who don't know, SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And we helped our students make SMART goals for the week and the semester, as well as helping them to sort of triage their tasks by level of importance. And our snack for that day was banana bread, where we actually substituted the butter with applesauce, so a little more healthy.
Our next one was processed foods, and this session was inspired by conversations we had with the athletic director and several coaches at the school who said that students were often snacking on candy and chips and soda before or after practice. So we really wanted to go over what exactly processed food means and categorize the different types by the NOVA classification system, focusing on things like added sugar, choosing whole grains over refined grains, and above all, choosing whole foods and snacks such as fruits and vegetables whenever possible. For a snack, we went simple for this one and chose mandarins, bananas, and nuts. And the activity was a contest about label reading, focusing on identifying added sugars, refined grains, and excessive preservatives.
Next was concussions. So for this lecture, we went over sort of the mechanisms of concussions and traumatic brain injuries in general, and how to recognize the symptoms of one in oneself or in their teammates/friends. We also wanted to stress the importance of getting off the field to avoid re-injury and talked about concussion injury protocol or return to play protocols. For our activity, we did an overview of neurological anatomy and physiology, and then we used that to practice a neurological exam. So we tested reflexes, we did pupil dilation, we checked alertness and orientation, all the things you would do in an athlete who's had a head injury. And for our snack, we made oatmeal balls, which are an easy snack. They're high in fiber and healthy fats.
Then we did stretching, warming up, and recovery. This is a brief overview of musculoskeletal anatomy and the mechanics of muscle activation. We use this information to stress the importance of warm up and cool down to avoid injuries such as tendon and ligament tears. For our snack, we had yogurt parfaits with Greek yogurt, homemade raspberry jam, and granola, and our activity was stretching.
All right, last, we just did this one a few weeks ago, so we just finished. It was heat exhaustion and hydration, just in time for it to get hot here. So we used a case-based approach to talk about some of the deadly risks of heat exhaustion and heat stroke, especially here in Texas where we live, as well as the importance of identifying symptoms and preventing it with proper hydration. For our activity, we talked about taking vital signs such as heart rate, respiratory rate, blood pressure, and temperature, all of which are important in the assessment of someone with possible heat stroke or even just dehydration. And then our snack, we focused on hydration and made an electrolyte replacement drink using coconut water, salt, and pineapple juice, sort of a low-cost Gatorade alternative without all the added sugar.
So here's some pictures from our sessions throughout the year. Our taping workshop was well attended and popular among the students. In general, our sessions had a core group of 8 to 10 students who regularly attended, plus or minus a few others. And on the bottom in the center is a picture from our end of year athletics banquet, which the athletic director, Coach Mickelson, who's on the left, generously invited us to and recognized our efforts.
We would love to take all the credit for the success of the program, but we were really so lucky to have a great, mature, and motivated group of kids. They surprise us every day with their initiative and their curiosity. We regularly had kids asking really thoughtful questions after each slide and contributing good input just based on their own experiences and knowledge. Some of the anecdotal highlights from the year, there was a time where a student stayed after the processed food session to ask more direct, thoughtful questions about health and nutrition to help with his own personal weight gain recently. We had several students after the health careers session express interest in careers like nursing, physical therapy, sonography. After our taping workshop, we had students asking to take home materials to practice on their own and teach their friends. And then after our stretching session, we had a group of very motivated cheerleading athletes who felt empowered by the knowledge they received to advocate for their team, to their coach and their other teammates, to do a more extensive warm-up before practice and competitions.
We found it really rewarding to gain the students' trust and then to see them take the knowledge and skills from the workshops and apply it in meaningful ways to their own lives. So here's a breakdown of how we used our AMSSM grant funding for the project. As we described previously, a big part of our project involved preparing healthy snacks, and this ended up being a sizable portion of the budget, of course. We spent an average of about $25 per session, which was enough to feed our 10 students, around 10 students, thanks to our choosing simple, affordable ingredients. And then another part of the budget is something that we had been talking about with the athletic director at East End for a very long time, which is the fact that they didn't have an ice machine. And the lack of an ice machine made cold water impossible to get on hot days, which was leading some students to drink sodas and energy drinks from the vending machine before or after practice, just so they could have something cold. And this was also hindering some of the athletes' ability to recover from injuries. As we all know, ice plays a big role in decreasing inflammation and pain after injury.
Yeah, so thanks to the AMSSM and the grant, we were able to purchase a high capacity ice machine for the athletic department. It's being installed sometime this week or next, and will hopefully improve access to ice for injuries and post-practice recovery, which we're very happy about. Right. As part of the project, we're collecting some data on a few metrics before and after participation in our sessions. We just recently wrapped up the curriculum where we're trying to get a hold of students to get their post surveys completed. But we just wanted to go over some of the things that we are measuring, and we'll hopefully get data on eventually. But first, we did a nutrition survey, which was designed by the AAP, that consists of a questionnaire asking about types and quantities of food and drinks consumed to identify areas of nutritional concern. We did an injury prevention survey designed by Rocky Vista University, which is meant to assess the frequency and location of stretching, as well as the frequency of injuries in an athletic season.
We also had a concussion knowledge survey, and this measures the respondents' knowledge of typical concussion symptoms as well as their attitude and knowledge surrounding concussion treatment and return to play protocols. And then lastly, we had a mental resilience study. This was the generalized self-efficacy scale, which measures how confident the respondent feels in taking on new challenges or adapting to difficult situations.
So conclusions, based on our conversations and just anecdotal experience with the students, they found the sessions to be personally beneficial, interesting, and enjoyable. And just speaking for ourselves, we found it really rewarding to do a long-term intervention with the same core group of students. In our experience, we noticed students grow over time, not only in terms of knowledge, but also curiosity, independence, and just taking initiative and leading as we progress through the sessions.
For the future, we would like to eventually expand the classes to include younger students and empower the older students to lead the activities themselves, fulfilling our goal of promoting self-sufficiency in the students and creating a culture of sharing knowledge and skills. We've also talked with our athletic director about working directly with sports teams at the school and incorporating our sessions into their practices, and we plan to record online sessions for the students to refer back to.
Okay. And just once again, we'd love to thank the Agostini, or the Dr. Agostini and the AMSSM, Joan, everyone here. We couldn't have done it without your support. Thank you so much. And of course, we want to thank Dr. Bajani as well, for his guidance and support. And of course, Dustin Mickelson, who is our athletic director and dean of students at the high school we were working at. He was a huge help. Thank you to everyone who helped us achieve this. We couldn't have done it without all of y'all, and also Dr. Bajani and Coach Mickelson. So thank you.
Hey, thank you both for your presentation, especially as a former D1 track lead myself. I might have a bias, so that was great and wonderful. It is now my pleasure to introduce Holly Williamson. She is a third-year medical student at Rocky Vista University College of Osteopathic Medicine in Colorado and Denver. Her faculty supporters are Dr. Lauren Rudolph and Dr. Catherine Vidla.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you to all of the presenters so far. It's amazing to see what everyone has created. So we focused our event on careers in medicine for the adaptive athlete. A little bit of background. So 1 in 4 adults in the US have some type of disability, and annually there are about 18,000 new spinal cord injuries and 185,000 new amputations, with projections in 2050 being around 3.6 million people living with limb loss. In the 2024 Paris Paralympic Games, Team USA had 225 adaptive athletes. However, only 3% of practicing physicians have a disability. So as we see that the adaptive athlete community is rapidly growing and there are many health benefits, both mental and physical, to being involved in adaptive sports, the population remains extremely underserved and also underrepresented. Many physicians lack the understanding of what the needs of adaptive athletes are, and there are very few that share lived experiences of physical disability, and especially in sports medicine. So our event, the goals were really around focusing on building a more representative and equity-focused sports medicine workforce. And that was through introducing individuals with physical disabilities to a pathway into sports medicine and healthcare careers. We wanted the event to be really fun, experiential, and approachable, and we wanted the participants to feel a lot of growth and inclusivity. We also wanted them to learn from medical providers who are also Paralympians and seeing the pathways that they've forged, because they're unique experiences and advice that only somebody who has a lived experience can really relay to some of these adaptive athletes who are interested in going into these careers. We wanted to encourage a network, kind of growing that connection between peers and mentors, and promote a healthy and active lifestyle. And then another thing we really wanted to focus on was educating medical trainees about adaptive sports and about physical disabilities, because there's a pretty big lack of awareness and understanding within the current workforce. We had an amazing team of mentors and medical students, Dr. Rudolph, Dr. Vidlock, Dr. Korber, Dr. Tao, and Dr. Keppel, all based here in Colorado. They gave amazing advice. And then the Rocky Vista medical student team listed below, so Shelby, Danielle, Anna, Krista, Elena, Ellie, Nicole, and Faraz were critical in making this event happen. So just wanted to say thank you to all of them. So in order to recruit for the event, we both needed a lot of volunteers as well as participants. We focused on partnering primarily with Adaptive Recreation for Childhood Health, the ARCH program, which is through Children's Hospital Colorado. And they serve children and adaptive athletes who are between the ages all the way up to 18. And then we reached out to Craig Hospital, the Neurorehabilitation and Research Hospital here in Colorado, and they're growing a program that's for their adolescent graduates. So those were our two primary ways to recruit. We also reached out to as many of the adaptive sports organizations in the community that we could. We also reached out to all of the Denver metro area high schools, community colleges, and universities, and connected with their offices for accommodations and inclusivity. And then we reached out to the rec centers based in each city around Denver and connected with their therapeutic recreation programs. We ended up having 40 people total at the event. And the event started off with speakers. So our first speaker was Katrin Green. She's a PA. She focuses on pediatric rehabilitation, and she is a gold and bronze medalist in track and field. We then had Dr. Pam Wilson speak to us. She's a PM&R doctor at Children's Hospital and is a curling Paralympian. She was able to come in person, which was really exciting for everyone. And then we had Dr. Michelle Conkley. She's also a PM&R physician in peds, and her specialty as a Paralympian is swimming. She's a two-time gold medalist, as well as silver and bronze. And the really amazing thing about these speakers was just the vulnerability and the unique journeys and pathways that they were able to share and really connect with the adaptive athletes who had attended the event. I would say that this was the most powerful part of the event. There were many people in the audience who were crying at the end, and our adaptive athletes were able to ask very personal questions and be very vulnerable with these mentors, sort of asking their advice on how to overcome societal barriers that they've experienced on their journeys and trying to explore sports medicine. We then had 6 different stations that the adaptive athletes rotated through. We really wanted it to be small groups and interactive. We had a health professionals Q&A, navigating accommodations, goal setting and next steps, and then hands-on ultrasound, training as an athlete, and OMT, so how they can protect their own bodies and make sure that they're healthy, and then adaptive sports. And so a lot of our attendees did come through the adaptive sports channels. However, we were able to connect them with additional community partners. And each of the attendees had a little sheet that looked like this, and then they got it checked off at every station that they went to. We broke into 3 different teams playing off of the Winter Olympics coming up, where our event was February, so right before the Cortina Paralympics. And so we had red, blue, and green teams. This is an example of some of the informational handouts that we included. So at the station for healthcare professionals Q&A, we had, I believe it was 16 different professions that they could explore. If you take a picture of the QR code in the upper right-hand corner, you can access those at a later time for those who are watching the recording. But this was something we really debated. So we wanted to make sure all of the stations were very focused on sports medicine. In speaking to mentors and some of the health professionals who are wheelchair users or have other types of disabilities, they really emphasized that it was important to include not just sports medicine and being a physician, but kind of all of the allied health professions, because it provides the most options for people who are navigating different adaptations they might need in their career, and really making sure that each individual could find the right fit for themselves. We focused a lot of our funds on prizes, so we really wanted all of the athletes to be able to go out into the community and have new adaptive sports medicine related experiences. We also had mentoring sessions and with different health professionals that they got to choose. And then some of our adaptive sports community partners were gracious and they donated about $250 worth of prizes as well. And one of the other unique things that came out of this was that some of our community partners actually had programs for caregivers. So the family and friends that attended were also able to get connected into the community alongside their adaptive athletes. So in the end, we had 12 people, athletes, families, and friends who attended. It was about half the amount that originally registered, and we largely attribute that to it being a bizarrely very warm and nice sunny winter day in Colorado. And so hopefully a lot of these athletes that registered were actually outside enjoying the being active. Our attendees ranged between 13 and 26. And we were a little bit concerned about how niche of a population this is and what the turnout would be, and also the need for different accommodations, how hard it might be to actually get to this library based on their different adaptations. And so we did ask for feedback on if they would attend it if it was virtual in the future. And it was pretty mixed. Some said yes, some said no, but it could be an option in the future to reach more adaptive athletes. The favorite pieces of the event were the speakers, and then similar to the other grant events we've heard tonight, the hands-on ultrasound is always a hit. And then feedback was that they wanted even more hands-on options, and then also providing specific stations and education around invisible disabilities. We did look at impact as well. And so in terms of confidence, identifying medical career pathways where the adaptive athletes' experiences could add unique value and expertise. Prior to the event, the adaptive athletes were not very confident in that. And then after the event, confidence rose to a statistically significant amount. There was also an increased interest in sports medicine, and then also interest in adaptive sports. We saw that pre and post. As far as our volunteers go, there were 28 volunteers, which was, I think, one of the really exciting and surprising pieces of this event. We tried to have as many different health professions represented and also different health professionals who live with different disabilities. So you can kind of see a list of the range of people we were able to get to the event. And it was really amazing to see the impact on the volunteers. Many of them are medical students. And so before, they were largely unfamiliar with adaptive sports, but afterwards, again, statistically significant increases in familiarity. And then I think this might be one of my favorite slides. It's pretty dense, but it just really goes to show how much of an impact interacting with our adaptive athletes and then hearing from the Paralympians impacted the way that our medical students are going to practice medicine. And so a 4.92 out of 5 on a Likert scale, increasing their awareness of the importance of adaptive sports for individuals with disabilities. Also high ranks in terms of improving their understanding of how disabilities affect patient care in medical settings, and also their confidence in supporting and interacting with individuals living with disabilities. And then 4.85 average, saying that they will change the way that they practice medicine and how they approach patient care as a result of attending this event. And we couldn't have done this without our partners across the community. We had amazing support, Rocky Vista University, University of Colorado, Children's Hospital Colorado, and then Craig Hospital as well. And then all of our community adaptive athletic organizations. So Arch, Adaptive Adventures, National Sports Center for the Disabled, No Barriers, and Movement Climbing Gym. And we just want to say thank you to AMSSM for support of this event. Thank you to Dr. Agostini, Dr. Powell, Dr. Nyack, and to Joan for all of your support and encouragement on this.
Thank you so much, Holly, for your presentation. I will personally have to message you about the adaptive sports because I'm interested. In general, I do hope that tonight has just inspired everyone to connect organically with the community around them. I'm a firm believer that all you need is just to see a face and know that you can do it too. And that's speaking as somebody who had never interacted with physicians up until my junior year of college, not in any type of personal way or medical student. So you all have done wonderful, and it was really great to hear from everyone. I will now introduce Dr. Melissa Nyack, an AMSSM member and leader of the Agostini Medical Student Community Outreach Grant, who will share important information about applying to the grant for 2026. Dr. Nyack, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Zhané, and thank you for doing a wonderful job moderating this evening. I just want to say it's an honor to be involved with this grant and really witness its impact over the years. And I want to thank all of our grant recipients, their faculty mentors, and their teams for these very inspiring projects that you have just presented. And it's just, I'm in awe of everything that you've done. And of course, I want to thank Dr. Powell for her inception of the grant and Dr. Agostini for her lifelong work that we are all inspired by, and to Joan for all of her work on the grant and with AMSSM. So let me just go through some logistics of the grant. There should be some slides up. So the community outreach, Agostini Medical Student Community Outreach Grant, the submission deadline for this year will be March 27th, 2026, which is a Friday. In terms of eligibility, it is current medical students enrolled in an accredited allopathic or osteopathic medical school, and the students do not need to be AMSSM student members to apply. And if you are awarded the if you do get the grant, then you will be awarded student membership if you're selected as a recipient. We do encourage collaboration amongst AMSSM student members and those who are not yet members. And for this year, we actually have funding for 7 grant awards of $500 each. In terms of the purpose and background of the grant, The main purpose is really an effort to intentionally grow a pathway of diverse candidates from underrepresented backgrounds to consider medicine and a subspecialty of sports medicine as a future career. And the overall purpose must be specifically incorporated into the community outreach grant or project or event. And in terms of the specific requirements, we would like a description of the community program or event that you will develop, coordinate, and implement. And our goal is project completion by February 1st, 2027. The goals of the community project and event need to be outlined, including a general location of the program, such as a virtual program versus an on-site location like an auditorium or park or gym, etc. We would like to know the timeline of the anticipated start and completion date, a brief budget of how the funds will be allocated for the event, and a name and email address of the faculty member that will be supporting your application. It is encouraged that they are an AMSSM member, but it is not required. And also, we would like to have a copy of your CV. And really, we encourage everyone to apply. So if there's any faculty members on this call, or additionally the medical students, if you could talk to your co-students, we would love and encourage your applications. It really does, as you can see from the event tonight, makes a difference in our communities to really inspire our underrepresented youth to consider medicine and a subspecialty of sports medicine as a future career. And it really just has a meaningful impact overall. We do have a QR code here. Again, the deadline for this year is March 27, 2026, Friday. And for any questions, we do have Joan Brown's information on there. So thank you very much, everyone, and hope to see everybody at AMSSM in April.
Thank you, Dr. Nayak, for sharing and encouraging medical students to apply for the grant. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Rosemary Agostini, a longtime AMSSM member, who will share her personal story of lifetime service to individuals and groups in her community. And it is truly an honor that Dr. Amy Powell named this grant after you to recognize you for your service to others over the years. You're still on mute.
Thank you. First, I want to just say how awesome all the presentations are. And it is a little bit mind-boggling for me as a physician now. I've been in medicine now 50 years. So I always say, look good, but I'm old. And that the work that you are all doing is fantastic. So I want to first thank Dr. Amy Powell. And I think it's important for students to know that just being kind goes a long way, and you never know who and how you're going to have influence. Two, Joan has been just incredible in supporting all of us. Dr. Melissa Nayak, coordinating all of this is a huge project. So Kyla, Dr. Fulani, Milan, Dr. Dustin Conway, Julie and Sam, was really interesting about having additional, not just a one day, and Holly with the adaptive sports. So what I can say is that it was as a medical student, when I was in the emergency room in the South Bronx, speaking to a young man who had no interest in speaking to me, that when we started speaking about his injury was related to sports, he went from not speaking to speaking a lot. And it became clear that the language of sports is a universal language, and it is a way for us not only to communicate, but to bring healthcare and open not only the community's eyes, but as a medical student's eyes. And that is what impacted me my entire career, and even now continuing to do that. So I would like to just say very, very simply that together we make a difference, that I'm excited that we now have 7 grants, that the American Medical Society for Sports Medicine meeting is in Seattle, which is my home. And so I will have a get together, and all of the medical student recipients of the grant will be invited to an evening get-together that I will coordinate, and we'll be able to share our stories. So again, I want to say a special thank you to the incredible work of all of the medical students and the communities they brought with them, to Dr. Amy Powell for her brilliance in creating this opportunity for people, and then the gift of naming it, Joan and Melissa Nyack for the work that she's done. Thank you, everyone. And I like to say, together we make a difference. And especially with the adaptive athletes, I think it brought home the point of, yes, we can. Thank you and good night, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Agostini. That was very inspirational in sharing just your story as well as how we can make a difference. Before we close, I'd like to thank all of our grant recipients for sharing their incredible programs and events that they have held within their communities. I'd also like to thank Dr. Powell, Dr. Nyack, and again, Dr. Agostini for sharing about the grant. And I'd also like to thank everyone who attended tonight's webinar. It has been my pleasure serving as moderator. And one thought as we end, as a prior grant recipient, and as I said before, it really just takes showing up and caring. And there's just so much impact that you can have with that. And perhaps you'll end up with 2 mentees like I did as well by the end of it. And that concludes tonight's webinar.
Thank you.